In today's episode, Alexandria and I will be interviewing Christian Torres. He is a former NYPD officer who served nearly a decade in federal prison for a series of bank robberies, including 18 months in solitary confinement where his mind was broken, rebuilt, and rewired to think in the matter of systems. He is now the director of business intelligence for a multi-million-dollar consulting firm and the founder of Stark Analytics, a decision intelligence company. He blends data analysis, business intelligence, and AI to help leadership teams make their high-stakes decisions. I hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Factor of the Future, People-Powered Health, podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. We are here with Factor of the Future. Very special guest, Christian Torres. So Christian had, you could say, an unusual introduction to the manufacturing world. And we're very excited to have Christian on to talk not only about how he got into the manufacturing space, but all the amazing things that he's doing to help businesses get to the next level and achieve their goals. So Christian, thank you for being on, and give us a little sneak peek about how you got into manufacturing.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. And yeah, it's definitely a unique story. I think at this point I've gotten pretty comfortable in telling it, but every time I do, I'm still fascinated by just the journey that I had to go through. And I often tell people that I look back on my life, especially if I go back 20 years, and it feels like it's a book that I read somewhere. It feels like it's a movie or something like that. That couldn't have been me. But if you think about it, every single one of us, if we look back to our younger selves when we were 18, 19, there are moments in our lives where we think, oh my God, I can't believe that I made those decisions, or I did that thing, or that I was that person, because we evolve, we change. I think everybody in the audience here knows that the spaces that we occupy, the places that we call work and home, as those places evolve and as we evolve, our experience changes, our opinions change, how we do things change, how we literally build ourselves and the world around us changes. And for me, that started with a path that I thought was going to lead me to become a criminal profiler. I grew up in the golden era of CSI, and so I thought I was in Criminal Minds. I thought I was going to be this forensic profiler. I was interested in law enforcement. I went to school for forensic psychology, and I definitely took a wrong turn, a couple of wrong turns along the way. I was a New York City police officer, and I made a series of mind-blowingly stupid decisions that were fueled from fear, greed, pride, and scarcity mindset. I felt trapped, like a lot of New Yorkers. We realized that that's not a cheap place to live. And when the pressure starts building, some people, they cave, they collapse. Some people find a way to overcome, and some people take shortcuts. And I am not proud to say that I was one of those that I found a shortcut opportunity. I took it. It was the wrong move, and I paid dearly for it. And so I ended up in federal prison because I had a conspiracy with, another person to rob a couple of banks. And that there's like the movie part of it. I'm like, I can't believe when I say it out loud that happened, but it did. And it was exciting. It was exhilarating. There was a quick, reward, dopamine hit, all those things that fuel us to do the things more, even though we know they're wrong. But in the end, like most things that are not the right thing to do, it fell apart and it blew up in my face.
Okay.
So I found myself in prison, And while I was there was when I actually got my introduction into the manufacturing space. It was the Federal Prison Industries, which is operates under the brand name of Unicor, and that is where the inmate labor is centralized in the facility. And we're not making license plates; we're making everything from riot gear, helmets for like the military, to filing, wood office furniture, metal office furniture, electronic components, textiles. There are just so many different types of manufacturing that happen under this umbrella. And that's where I got my education originally.
Okay, you got to walk me through this because this is new to me.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in manufacturing, not so much in what you said, like Unicor. It's like you'd leave your place of residence, I guess, like better said.
And then our unit, they call it. That's the building that we resigned. They don't have like cells anymore, really. At least not in the federal prison system. They have rooms, they have dorms, and they're all contained in buildings called units.
Okay, and then you check in. I don't know. I'm just thinking about and then you work 2.5 hours. You get a break. 15 minutes, come back. I mean, I'm just really wanting to get into it.
What was the day in the life? Yeah. What was the day in the life? Yeah,
absolutely. So 5 a.m. the doors unlock. We were able to get ready, have your coffee. By 6 o'clock, chow hall's open. You go get breakfast. By 6:30, we're entering into a corridor into the actual factory building. We had biometric check-in scanners. Like we actually put a fingerprint on there and it scans to check us in. Yep. Wow. So we each go to our respective.
What year was this? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. So that was 2015.
Okay.
That's really cool.
That's pretty advanced. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep on going.
So we go to our respective department. Each department has an officer that's responsible for the safety and security of that department and all the inmate workers in that area. The inmate labor force is actually split up very similar to what you would see in any other facility. You have people that have administrative tasks. You have QA technicians. So you have an entire QA department with QAs that are assigned to each department. You have painters. You have what's that?
They're also inmates? Okay.
So there is one officer per each department, and each department could have anywhere from 20 to 50 inmates with one officer. So the officer's job is mostly care and custody. They are not actually doing any of the manufacturing work.
Well,
they're not
the supervisor, right? I mean,
yes, exactly. So everything from purchase orders, work orders, moving things throughout the process, the actual physical work, the inspection of the work, the packaging of it, loading the trucks, from the initial processing in SAP, when the order comes in, all the way to the outbound shipping label, everything is done by the inmates. Everything.
That is something that nobody talks about, No. I feel like, so I used to work for a nonprofit in college. There was opportunity to be a part of this program that you basically volunteered each semester or for a year, whatever it worked out to be, at a different nonprofit. The first one that I chose, ironically, I did a digital database of information, which is funny, but that's a different story. They helped a lot of formerly incarcerated people. And there was a statement that they were not trained to do any work in the prison system, or there was no it was really setting people back in a significant way. So what the Inspiration Corporation does is they train people how to become chefs and cooks. They give them jobs in their specific kitchen, and then their kitchen serves homeless or people who are struggling to feed themselves in a restaurant style way. But it's interesting that you're talking about all of these different skills that you and your I'll say colleagues, inmates, whatever, had the opportunity to develop. Like, there's so many different skills that are happening from a time a purchase order comes in all the way to the time it's outbound and, ready for delivery. Do a lot of people exit and then go down the manufacturing route, or is that just a part of their experience that they would never turn back to?
Oh, good question. Yeah.
Yeah, from what my this anecdotal experience, people that I still stay in contact with, I'd say it's about 50-50. Which is better than what you would expect given the rate of recidivism, in the system. But the people that actually do complete the Unicor program, because it's considered programming, right? It's part of the rehabilitation. Not everybody, It's voluntary. You don't have to sign up for it. And even if you sign up for it, not everybody gets in. And where you work is sometimes not really up to you, but eventually there is upward mobility. They have different pay scales, and you can transfer within departments. We have payroll clerks, procurement clerks, quality technicians, and they do have partnerships with the Department of Labor. So you can actually do Department of Labor apprenticeship programs. So if you get your hours, you can actually get a Department of Labor apprenticeship certificate that means something in the real world, right? Outside of those walls. And the experience that you're getting with the software. So we used SAP, I used Microsoft, and I was doing Lean Six Sigma projects. Yeah. So that was another thing I got really deep into. We were ISO 9000 certified, and I was the head clerk that was in charge of the ISO internal auditing. So I became an ISO internal auditor.
Wow.
Yeah, our factory, we decided to go after something called BIFMA level certification, which is specific to the furniture industry. And we called outside consultants in. And when the consultants came in, they thought they were going to be working with the staff. And the factory manager at the time said, my job is to make sure the place stays running. But if you have questions about the product, the data, what it goes into making this, like how our process works, you talk to that guy right there. And so they turn to me, and I'm sitting there in khakis, like, okay, so this is our point of contact. And yes, this is actually the person that can help you get all the information you need to pursue this certification, which, funny story, that consulting firm that came in is the same firm that later, when I got released, offered me a job, and they were acquired for somebody else. But that's actually who I serve for right now as the director of business intelligence for this environmental consulting group that I met through that consulting firm when I was incarcerated.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
What an inspirational story. And honestly, I just have to take a second to say kudos to you for the way you approached the entire situation, right? Like, I'm hearing the opposite of how, maybe your mental framework, and maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong, but some people in that same exact situation would not view it as an opportunity. They would view it as something negative, right? And something that, you have to begrudgingly do. You were seeing it as a complete opportunity to develop all these skills, probably exercise your mind when there was limited opportunity to do so otherwise, and then build your path once that chapter of your life had ended. And speaking of chapters, you'll have to walk us through a little bit about what you have there so the audience can find, if they're interested in this story, there's obviously a way to get more. So Christian, would you tell us about that?
Yeah. So while I was in that factory, I wasn't just building cabinets, right? And I worked at every part of that factory. We had overtime, just like out in any other factory. When production ramps up demand, there's overtime shifts. So I worked in everything from the press department, working on CNC machines. I worked in the paint booths. I worked in assembly, worked in the warehouse, driving forklifts. So I did the full spectrum of the operation. Yeah. But most importantly, I tell people that in that place, the most important thing I built was myself. I built my mind. I built myself back up, because when I landed in there, I had lost everything that defined who I was. Obviously, I couldn't be in law enforcement anymore. I felt ashamed. I was embarrassed. I had just completely let everybody, including myself, down. So I was broken down. And another really key part of the story was that when I first got there, because I was former law enforcement, they put me in solitary confinement. And I spent a total of 18 months in solitary confinement, which, if on your own time, if you want to do some research, some fun, research with coffee, see what the effects are of solitary confinement on the human brain. After just 3 to 6 months, there are people that have like lifelong atrophy in parts of the brain, and they struggle with substance abuse, suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety. I did 18 months and I was completely just like broken down, and I had to rebuild my mind from the ground up and start thinking, well, what does this look like for me? How do I connect the dots? What am I going to do going forward? And the tool that was at the intersection of where I was mentally and what the factory was using as part of its technology stack was Microsoft Excel, which a lot of people were like, wait, Excel, spreadsheets? What does that have to do with any of this? It was the blank canvas. It was the creative space where I was able to take a mind that had been completely just broken down and needed a place to start rebuilding. And now I have this blank canvas where I can just start making logical connections and building scenarios, and I can see the effects of what happens if I change the value in cell A1, right? Something really simple. If I change this value, what are the ripple effects? And if I connect that cell to this cell and this cell, it's a chain reaction. And all of a sudden, it just dawned on me. I said, this is how we make decisions, but so many people don't actually consider the ramifications of changing that value. You make a decision today, you just think, okay, well, I'll just, live with it. But our decisions have consequences that ripple across our lives.
Yes.
The same way that if you make a change in one cell, it has a ripple effect throughout the entire spreadsheet. And that was what clicked for me. And so I developed this passion and I started building myself. And that is actually the main topic of my book that I just put out now. And it's called Built in the Dark, because that is exactly where I had to rebuild myself, in that dark place. So that is out. And if any of your viewers would like to check it out, it is available at builtinthedark.org. And it tells the whole story in detail, the crimes, my time with the NYPD, how I got there, my time in solitary confinement, which definitely has some harder chapters. The time spent in manufacturing, what I learned, and then eventually what happened once I was released from that place and how I was able to take all those principles and put them into practice.
Absolutely incredible. So fast forward, you've developed a whole stack of skills, a passion and a mastery of Excel. You leave prison, you sign on with a consulting firm, and walk us through from that day to present. Like, what are you currently working on? How did you get to what you're currently working on? Like, what was the chain reaction, that led to where you are currently?
Yeah. So I take it back to the origin, right? That cell A1, the beginning. Yep. While I was sitting in solitary confinement, I read the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And he had this practice where he would sit down, and he would close his eyes, and he would channel the brilliant minds of his time, the people that he wished he had there, pressure testing his ideas and helping him make better decisions, which, for me was a topic I was very interested at the time. I was like, okay, how do I change this so I don't end up back in this place? And that really stuck with me. So I took that, and then eventually the next step was now manufacturing, Excel, analytics, Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement. So now this is all building this kind of stack, right? So everything was broken down. The building was torn down. And then from there began this idea of better decision making, and then analytics. And then from there, I went into structured systems and continuous improvement. I just kept building up this stack, which was really building up myself. And when I got to the consulting firm, they saw an opportunity to say, well, you have the skills, you have the experience, we'd love for you to be a project manager. And I did that, and that's fine. I could manage the project, but more importantly, they said, wait a second, we think you could do more good if you help us to develop our internal tools across the organization and focus on innovation and continuous improvement. So then I moved from project manager to the continuous innovation manager, and I was helping across different services, building internal tools, process automation, workflow, innovation. And then from there, they said, okay, well, we're growing and we need somebody to kind of head up operations. So I was promoted to director of operations. And that's when I realized, wait a second, I kind of hit a ceiling. And this is important. When you are on a growth trajectory, eventually you might hit a wall or ceiling in this case. And you have to kind of realize, this maybe is not the right direction. I realized that my place was not as the overseer or manager of multiple people, because that was actually pulling me away from what I loved, which was the systems, the technology, the tools. And don't get me wrong, I love people, but just that wasn't where my strength lied. And the company I worked for They are so amazing, so wonderful. They saw that and said, okay, well, then we're going to find a place that allows you to tap into your genius and your highest and best use. And I got reassigned to now Director of Business Intelligence, where I can build the tools that support the people that I used to manage, but I'm no longer their boss. I am now the force multiplier. I am the thing that can help them do their job better. And that was the best experience of my life. I love my job there. And I realized I could do this for other companies. Yeah. So I started my own company on the side, right? I had the blessing of the president. He's always been super supportive and said, we want you to continue pursuing your interests because that makes you better. And when you're better, you can show up better for our people and for our clients. So please pursue your passions and don't ever let us get in the way of that. I mean, amazing.
That's great. Absolutely great.
Amazing leadership. And so I started Stark Analytics, originally doing exactly what I was doing at Foresight, building Excel tools and models and automations. But I took it back. I always kept taking it back to that solitary state, that cell. And I said, why do I actually do this? Why am I building these tools? Nobody ever gets excited about a spreadsheet, but why am I building this? And it dawned on me that the thing I was really doing was building decision infrastructure, which is the thing that can sometimes cripple or handicap an operation, because you can have all the shiny new tools. I mean, we have tools right now that look like they're from 2050, AI tools that we would have never thought we'd have at this point. And yet some companies are still struggling because at the top, the people that are making the decisions are doing it with a 1998 spreadsheet mentality. They're not actually making decisions using the proper tools. So I realized that my realm was something called decision intelligence, which is the intersection of business intelligence, analytics, AI, and human decision-making frameworks. And where all those convene is decision intelligence and how we use those tools to make better decisions, which is what I've been seeking all along.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just a quick break, and then we'll get right back to the show. We are always open for meaningful sponsorship or guests that align with our audience. If your brand fits and would like to be on one of the top 10% podcasts in the world, let's chat. Reach out by email in the show notes. Back to the show. I like to just wind back a little bit, and I was going to ask the question about, when you're, how do you create motivation? And particularly when you were talking about when you were in prison, and what you alluded to was you were given these opportunities. They come in with different certifications. They're offering you different positions, and I just see that. I mean, when we talk about Factor of the Future podcast, is like one of the changes we see is promoting a different type of mentality, that it's not how to get people motivated is really what I see about it. And then you were able to explain that, and I like how you promote that. And how do you use that today, as far as when you go into a different organization, and what do you see and analyze? Because you see them still using the Excel, but go ahead, Christian.
Yeah. How do I get them excited about what's possible?
Yes.
Right? And what that future holds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I often take them back to the moment before any tool, any decision actually gets made, because that's really where the power lives. And if you take any system, any software, it was purchased, it was added because somewhere along the line, someone thought they had a problem and that this would be the solution. Now, more than ever, we have all the tools we could ever want. We have AI tools, we have BI tools, we have everything that's giving us all the systems, the outputs, building systems, we have autonomous systems, we have agentic systems, everything's feeding us all this information. We are swimming in answers, and somewhere along the line, we forgot the question. And that's where I take them back to. I say, what are we actually trying to achieve here? And what does that look like 2 to 3 years from now if we get it right? What does it look like if we get it wrong? And if you work backwards from that, all of a sudden, all different types of ideas and questions start coming out of that conversation. because too many people, they're obsessed with certainty and trying to be able to just find the right answer. They want to be able to point to a PowerPoint slide and say, this is what we're going to do, this is where it's going to get us, and this is how we're going to measure success. The end. Do I get my bonus now? It's like, that's not how this works. We actually have to play the scenario through all the way. And that's the thing that I got really good at. And so what I do is I walk them through a scenario and say, okay, let's pretend that we do this. Let's pretend that we were right. If everything goes according to plan, what breaks first? And all of a sudden, you force them to start thinking about, oh, wait, something bad could happen even if we're right? Yeah, even if everything goes great, what breaks first? Because eventually every system faces pressure as it scales. So if you get it right, what breaks first? What's your weakest link? If you get it wrong, what is that actually going to cost you? And I'm not talking about money. Let's get deeper. And so you take them down these mental exercises, and that's when they start seeing.
Can you give us an example that, like, where you did that, and what was the thing that was going to break? And
Yep. So I was helping the data team within our organization, and we needed a new way to stay on top of like data maintenance. Like, how well are we ensuring that our clients' data, when it comes in, we're doing all the normal monthly checks and everything. And they had a request. They said, can you build us a tool that will, do this? It will check every single month, check to see if we have the bills for that client, because we manage like utility bills and things like that. Can you build a system that will track everything and will let us know exactly where we stand? Can you give us that? And I said, sure, I can build that for you, but let's play this out. If right now we have 80 something clients that have this need for us to have this tracking system, that's great. That's 80 something spreadsheets. What happens when we get to 100? What happens when we get to 500? At what point does this system, this approach, this thing that you're asking for that you think will solve your problem actually create more of a headache, more of a pain point? Because when you need to make one update or one change, then, that's a nightmare. And when you want to migrate to a different system, is this actually going to set you up for a bigger problem later? And so we have to take it back to the drawing board and build with the intention that this thing needs to be scalable, because if we just build the thing that will solve the problem today, then a year from now, as you get more customers, as you grow and you input more things through that process, it's going to really then face the pressure. You can't take the same manufacturing line and that you run 100 products through, and if you say, okay, well, that's great, we're successful. Oh man, demand just bumped up. We got to crank out 1,000 of these. Can it actually support that? Or are you going to end up breaking your machines? Do you have the labor to do it? Do you have the space to accommodate that much output? There's all these questions of unintended consequences that people don't even think about unless you force them to.
That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And I hope the audience is taking a second to reflect on how they could apply the same approach to thinking in their own teams, businesses, etc. Because so many people fail to do the pre-mortem, right? Which you brought up.
Yep.
Not only that, but what I thought was really cool is thinking about, okay, if it goes right, and also what breaks. Because I don't hear people talking about that ever. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That's just absolute wisdom. Is there anything that we didn't cover today, Christian, that you wanted to touch on?
I often get asked about what is my opinion on AI, because everybody's talking about it. It is the thing. It doesn't matter if you're in a marketing firm, a consulting firm, manufacturing firm.
Yep.
Whether you're on the factory floor or you're sitting, in your mom's basement building the next Facebook that you think, you've unlocked.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, AI is playing a role. And for factories specifically, I think that the real, it's a coin. It's a coin with two sides. One is opportunity, one is threat. And you cannot separate them. AI represents both an opportunity and a threat simultaneously.
I like that.
And you can't disentangle that. For factories, AI is going to give them so much like access to faster metrics and KPIs and reports. They are going to have more than they know what to do with. And the scary part is, if you look at every single BI tool, if you look at all these things that AI is now going to help us to track and analyze, it is all noise. It's noise in the sense that if you understand that there are 4 dimensions to analytics, there's 4 types of data analytics. The first one, the most simple one, is descriptive analytics. And that is simply describing what happened. That doesn't tell you why it happened, doesn't tell you what you should do about it. It just paints a pretty picture, some infographics, and says, this is what happened. And hopefully you as a human can make heads or tails out of it and do something. The next level is diagnostic analytics. And that's where there's a real opportunity for AI to inject itself into that BI ecosystem and figure out why it happened, not just what happened. And that's where the signal is compared to the noise. Beyond, we can get into predictive analytics, which a lot of people are doing, forecasting, great. It's funny, there's 4. We do a lot of descriptive analytics, not a lot of diagnostic. We need to do more of the diagnostic. We do a lot of predictive analytics, but we forget that AI is going to help us do the 4th one, which is the most impressive, which is called prescriptive analytics. And that doesn't just tell you what's going to happen in the future, it tells you what to do about it in order to get you where you want to go. That is the magic. If you can understand why something happened, and then you use your whatever simulation you have, you can use auto-regressive models, Monte Carlo, probability engines. Forecasting is not new. You can forecast whatever you want, and you're probably wrong. But once you forecast it, great. What are you going to do about it? And so AI, I think, is really an opportunity in the sense that it can help diagnostic and prescriptive analytics, but it's a threat if we just use it to build fancier descriptive and predictive models, because that's just going to get us nowhere.
Yeah, I've never heard it that way, and I do know that model, and you say it very well. I think I'm going to have to write that down, and I'm going to steal it from you. I'm stealing it because it's good.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the 4 types of analytics, because in certain conversations I've been a part of, we talked about, some of the areas in which the team that I work with shines is doing the diagnostic analysis, not just the descriptive analysis. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And then furthermore, the predictive and then the prescriptive. So can you give me an example before we close out the show of what a prescriptive analytic output would be for a given scenario? You seem to have a really vibrant mind and great at coming up with scenarios and things like that, which I think serves you in your career. But could you just walk us in the audience through what a prescriptive analytic output would be?
Yes, and it starts with understanding your constraints. So if you feed into an AI model your known constraints, and that could be like square footage, total shifts in a day, total amount of labor force, how many employees you have, those are your constraints, your current constraints. And then you give it something like a capacity optimization problem and say, well, I need to stop paying overtime on all these shifts, and I need to distribute my work. And I have a predictive model that tells me that my sales are going to go up in this season, and I know that I need to be ready for this much increase in demand. Okay, great. Knowing that your demand is going to go up, by 20%, that's predictive. Prescriptive would be if the system can now, understanding your constraints, say, okay, well, if you're going to go up by 20%, this is what you actually have. These are the tools in your toolkit. You can shift capacity and move people from one shift to another. You can reallocate to this space, because if this welding department takes up this much space and your packing department is this, and you know that you're going to front load on the welding, maybe you take up a little bit more space here to do this part first and then reallocate. It can operate with the known puzzle pieces and give you your top 3 options on how you can actually manage and prepare for this bump in 20% demand. Before, all you knew was, we think demand's going to go up 20% and we don't want to pay overtime. Great. But a prescriptive system is going to work with the known constraints and variables to give you real options versus something that's made up. Like, you don't want a system that's going to say, oh, that's fine, just hire 20% more people. Like, or just,
well, that's
like,
what a human would say, right?
Yeah, like,
we're gonna need to increase headcount. We need temporary staff coming in. Yeah,
exactly. And the same thing on the other side. We're going to be seeing a downside. That we're going to be seeing some downshifting in sales. Well, what does a human think? Well, we need to lay some people off, go to part-time. Maybe that's not the best option. Let's run it through a prescriptive model that will, again, using our constraints and our resources, give us some other options on how we can handle that predicted state that we see coming down the pipeline. What are our options? And that is where I have a lot of fun playing with AI, because you can give it all these different scenarios and it will raise ideas and questions that you would have never thought of otherwise.
100%.
Yep.
Well, Christian, you've given us all a lot to chew on, and certainly some great frameworks about moving through the world of manufacturing. So thank you for taking the time to share your depth of knowledge on analytics and all things manufacturing with us, and intelligence and decision frameworks. It was just, I feel like I'm an audience member after talking to you, and I feel very privileged to have met you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. It's what I've been doing for over 15 years. And yeah, I get fired up and I get a little bit energetic about it, because there's so much out there that can be done. It's exciting, the opportunities. And I don't think I'll ever stop thinking about these types of things. And if I can inspire somebody else to think a little bit differently and find some cool solutions, then I'm doing my job.
You certainly are. So if people want to buy your book, builtinthedark.org, if they want to get in touch with you, maybe to learn more about what you're working on or how they could partner with you to help in their business, where would they go to connect with you?
Yeah, so I have two websites. One is more for me, like my personal brand. So I do speaking, I do corporate workshops. If you're just interested in engaging with me because you think I can help your company in a particular way, whether you're looking for a speaker for an event, a facilitator for a workshop, or things like that, then my website is christiantorres.info. That's just kind of like more about me. Then there's my company's page, which is stark-analytics.com. And that's where you can find all the different things that I offer under the umbrella of Stark Analytics, which includes our Stark Decision System Blueprint, which is where we sit down and take one of your decisions, that's a recurring decision, and actually give you the architecture. We outline what the blueprint for a systematic way of making that decision would look like, so that you can have the exact framework for it. And we also do some fun things with AI. We have our Stark Advisory Board on there. So the example I give people is, imagine if you had Gary Vee helping you with social media, Elon Musk helping you with research and development, and Jeff Bezos with logistics. Regardless of how you feel about these individuals, you get the point. You can actually hand select the board that you would otherwise never be able to afford having at a round table, helping you with your specific ideas. And I built this thing to help me with my business. And then everybody started asking for it. I said, okay, well then obviously I've got something here, and I'm going to share it with the world, because this is going to help create an advisory board that can serve as your thought partner, as a pressure test to your ideas, and help you make better decisions. So I said, yeah, that's on brand.
That's great. That's great. Well, hopefully you'll get to connect with some new people. And thank you so much for being on the show. We are out of here like finished goods.
Yes, we are.
I love that.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review, and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.